This is the treasure of our hearts. It's not our job to catch God. God catches us. In the name of a strong-armed God. Amen. I haven't thought about it for several years, but whenever I think about it, it's like yesterday. It was 25 years ago. It was a pleasant Saturday evening, and my 3 older children were in the car with me. We were riding north on Atlantic Boulevard in Alhambra, just passing Main Street, on our way back to our home in northwest Pasadena. The 3 kids were in the back seat with the boys at the windows and Kathy in the middle, her assigned station to keep the peace. In the blink of an eye, the pleasant Saturday became a nightmare. Out of what seemed like nowhere, 6-year-old Greg started screaming, not crying, screaming at the top of his lungs. It didn't make sense. I really shouted back at him, What? What is it? As I pulled the car over into the parking lot behind the Pharos Burger there, across from the Ralph's, what is now Ralph's on Huntington. All 3 children were crying, and I was still dumbfounded about why, until Kathy cried out, "We've been shot. Look at the window." There was a tiny hole in a spider webbing of the window, the hole just above the height of Greg's head. I understood in that moment what it means for one's blood to run cold. Thank God no one was physically hurt. The man in the little store behind the Pharos Burger there told me that at least 2 others had had the same terrible experience, and that the police were trying to catch the person who was shooting either a BB gun or possibly a pellet air rifle at cars. It was that blink of the eye change in a pleasant Saturday afternoon that came back to me as I read today's scripture. It was the gospel word about not knowing the day or the hour when tragedy may strike, suddenly, out of nowhere, in the blink of an eye. What is the answer? What do we do? Perhaps more than ever, we live with the threat of being caught up in indiscriminate terror. How do we avoid being caught? It is that phrase, caught up, or being caught, that reminds me of an insight about another word in our gospel today, the word about where our treasure is, our heart will be. The late, great spiritual writer Henry Nouwen tells of an insight about the treasure of faith that he received at, of all places, the circus. Nouwen went to see the South African trapeze group, the Flying Rodleys, perform. He was mesmerized by their breathtaking performance as they flew gracefully through the air, breathtaking for the threat of possibly failing to catch hold of the other acrobat. What would happen in that blink of an eye? At the end of the show, Nouwen was able to interview the leader of the troupe, asking him to explain how he was able to perform with such fearless grace and ease so high in the air. Rodley responded, "The public might think that I am the great star of the trapeze, but the real star is Joe, my catcher. The secret is that the flyer does nothing, and the catcher does everything. When I fly to Joe, I have simply to stretch out my arms and hands and wait for him to catch me and pull me safely over the apron behind the catch bar. The worst thing the flyer can do is to try to catch the catcher. I'm not supposed to catch Joe. It's Joe's task to catch me." Henry Nouwen, of course, takes the moral from that, and he sums it up: when trouble comes, so often we try to grab on to God. We think if we do enough mental gymnastics or enough fanciful praying, we can somehow catch God. It's not our job to catch God. God catches us. This arms out flying is the way that Jesus lived his life as well. Flying with your arms out is the way Jesus invites us to live our lives as well. When he tells us this morning that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also, he is reminding us to treasure what is truly valuable. Not our worldly wealth, but our spiritual wealth. Not the status we have attained, but the love we have engendered. Not what's in our pocketbook or bank account, but what's in the book of life on our account. Not what we have caught, not that we have caught hold of life, but how we are allowing God to catch hold of us, to fill our hearts with lasting treasure. Jesus showed us the way, teaching us that it is not our job to catch God. God catches us. Jesus lived his life with utter freedom and abandon, with outstretched arms that trusted always that the Creator would catch him and be there. He knew the difference between trusting the catcher and trying to grab things with your own strength. When he was tempted in the wilderness, he would not grasp for security, esteem, or power, the three temptations. Instead, he flew through life with arms outstretched, trusting in the grasp of God to give him whatever security, esteem, or power that he needed. The result is a fearless life, a stunning freedom, an openness that allowed him to be God's instrument of healing, love, and compassion. He launched himself like a trapeze artist, flying through life with his arms wide open, leaping into death with abandoned trust. His resurrection is God's great catch, God's awesome yes to a life lived with a heart focused upon the true treasure of God's love. This is the way we are invited to live as well. We don't have to hold on to anything. We can let go of our anxious, self-protecting grasp and fly with the Spirit. Of course, we do our part. We do what we can to be safe and secure. It was years before I drove up Atlantic Boulevard again in Alhambra. We do what we can to be, as Churchill put it, masters of our fate, makers of our destiny, captains of our souls. But ultimately, and quite realistically, the gospel is right. We know not the day nor the hour. And so we take St. Augustine's advice to work as though everything depended on us and pray as though everything depended upon God, which is to say that achieving anything significant in your life is a genuine partnership between the bits you are responsible for and the bits that are God's business. To really achieve anything, we need to give attention to both. But the really good news, the treasure, God will catch us. We can let go of all our anxieties and worries. God will catch you. That's the secret of life, the treasure that your heart must claim. Your ultimate treasure is not in your own hands, but in the hands of God, who throughout your life and at the end of your life will unfailingly catch you. So put your arms out and wait for God, who will snatch you out of the air and pull you to the safety of God's embrace over and over, day by day, and finally, on the last day. You are utterly free to be the thrilling acrobat that God has created you to be. This is the treasure of our hearts. It is not our job to catch God. God catches us. in the name of a strong-armed God.